Have you ever wondered what it takes to truly get under Donald Trump's skin? We've all seen the fiery responses, the quick comebacks, the outbursts. But what happens when a simple truth lands the perfect blow? Recently, Mark Cuban dropped a tweet that did exactly that, and it's safe to say that it broke Trump's brain. What was this devastating tweet? And why did it cause such a meltdown from the former president? It's no secret that Donald Trump isn't exactly known for his nuanced discussions on policy. In fact, many critics have pointed out that when it comes to the intricacies of governance, Trump often falls short of delivering in-depth analysis. Yet, despite this, he's maintained an image of strength, sharpness, and dominance. Enter Mark Cuban, a self-made billionaire and a man who actually knows Trump personally. Cuban's tweet wasn't some wild attack. It was a simple, blunt observation. He pointed out something that many of us can see with our own eyes. At 78 years old, Trump is not as sharp as he used to be. Now, why did this observation, which is grounded in the simple reality of aging, send Trump into a Twitter rage? Mark Cuban didn't even make an elaborate argument. He didn't launch into an attack or dig up dirt. He simply acknowledged something that, frankly, should be obvious. Father Time is undefeated. As we all know, aging affects everyone, and no one is exempt from the natural cognitive decline that comes with it. Yet for Trump, a man whose entire identity and political strategy have been built on projecting an image of invincible strength and mental prowess, this truth was a direct hit. What makes Cuban's comment so potent is that he's not just a random Twitter critic. Cuban has known Trump for years and has witnessed firsthand how time has taken its toll. Cuban didn't just make a vague reference. He directly addressed the fact that Trump's physical appearance, including the questionable hair and slower movements, is a reflection of the inevitable process of aging. For someone like Trump, whose brand is built on boasting about his genius and sharp business instincts, this was a devastating blow. Imagine this. You've spent decades crafting an image of yourself as a brilliant businessman, constantly reminding people of how sharp you are, how quick-witted, how much better you are than others in your field. Now, imagine someone who knows you well and who has had their own success in business, pointing out that you're not quite the same. That, in essence, is what Cuban did. He didn't have to dig deep or make malicious accusations. He just spoke the truth. And yet, for Trump, it was enough to trigger a public meltdown. What truly stings for Trump is that Cuban, unlike many others, is a bona fide billionaire, someone who earned his fortune from the ground up. Cuban didn't inherit his wealth like Trump did, nor did he rack up a string of bankruptcies. He built his empire from scratch. So when someone like Cuban, with that kind of credibility and experience, questions your mental sharpness, it cuts deep. After all, how could a self-made billionaire be wrong about the mental state of a man who's spent decades proclaiming his superiority? Let's take a step back for a moment. Remember when Trump bragged about passing a cognitive test? He kept bringing it up, almost as if to prove he wasn't suffering from any mental decline. It became one of his go-to flexes. Person, woman, man, camera, TV became his bizarre way of proving his mental acuity. But then, here comes Cuban, pointing out the very thing Trump had been trying to hide. Aging affects everyone, even former presidents. Cuban's tweet wasn't a cruel joke or a medical diagnosis. It was simply an acknowledgement of a biological reality that Trump, for all his bravado, couldn't escape. What makes Cuban's tweet even more impactful is that it cut through the layers of Trump's carefully constructed persona. The real vulnerability here isn't the aging process itself. It's Trump's desperate need to appear sharp and unshakable. His entire political brand relies on the image of a man who is always in control, always ahead of the curve. So when Cuban pointed out the truth, it was like someone ripping the rug out from under Trump's carefully maintained facade. But what happened after Cuban's tweet? Instead of addressing the actual issue, Trump did what he always does. He lashed out. He ignored the legitimate criticism about his cognitive decline and instead focused on attacking Cuban. He called Cuban overrated and then launched into an absurd rant about TV ratings from 2 decades ago. Why on earth would someone concerned about their mental sharpness choose to boast about a reality TV show that aired in the early 2000s? It's as if Trump was trying to distract everyone from the real issue, his declining cognitive abilities, by bringing up an irrelevant, outdated TV show. Trump's reaction wasn't just nonsensical, it was a complete deflection. It was as if someone were criticizing my driving skills, and I responded by talking about my glory days in a high school spelling bee. Trump's rambling response wasn't just a deflection, it was an indication of exactly what Cuban had pointed out. A person who's mentally sharp wouldn't veer off into meaningless tangents. They would offer coherent arguments, engage with the criticism directly, and perhaps show us a few examples of their mental acuity. Instead, Trump gave us a disjointed mess of random thoughts and irrelevant references. It's clear that Trump's need to protect his image is stronger than ever. But rather than show us that he's still capable of leading the country, he ended up demonstrating exactly why Cuban's tweet struck such a nerve. Instead of addressing the issue of cognitive decline, Trump continued to live in the past, bragging about TV ratings and obscure references that no one outside of his loyal base even cares about anymore. It's like watching a person who's stuck in their own nostalgia, refusing to acknowledge the present moment. And let's not forget the defenders. After this Twitter meltdown, imagine the task of defending Trump's bizarre behavior. How could anyone rationalize bragging about TV ratings in response to a serious question about his mental fitness? It's like trying to defend a person who failed a basic math test by saying they're great at ice cream trivia. No one was buying it. Trump's defenders scrambled to spin his bizarre outburst as a sign of his fighting spirit. But honestly, all it showed was a man desperate to maintain a grip on an image that's slipping further away by the day. The whole episode was a textbook example of how aging affects everyone, even those in positions of power. The reality is that most 78-year-olds experience some form of cognitive decline. However, unlike the rest of us, Trump is still trying to lead the country while denying this natural process. A truly sharp political mind would have recognized the trap and avoided it. Instead, Trump fell right into it, showing us all exactly what happens when the facade cracks. So what does this all mean? Cuban's tweet wasn't just a jab at Trump, it was a wake-up call. It reminded us that the aging process is unavoidable, but it also revealed the insecurity that lies beneath Trump's public persona. In the end, all it took was one simple truth to unravel a carefully constructed image. And that, my friends, speaks volumes.